You are listening to the IT Path Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Morrison. Let's go and help you claim your journey into IT. This is Dana from the IT Path Podcast here, where we keep you moving on your IT journey. We want to get you going and keep you going. Embrace your journey every step of the way. Today, I have something exciting to talk to you about. It's a little bit different episode today, but I do want to share something that is super cool that's going on right now, something that I am building with a friend, Sean. We are working on another site, and I can't wait to tell you about it. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about outcomes. When you put energy and effort into something, you should have outcomes. You should see things that come out of that relate back to the effort and energy that you put into something. And I want to just kind of talk a little bit about, and I've done this with another podcast with Sean on another podcast. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But last year, I did a 50-mile run. I did it on my 50th birthday, turned 50, and I ran 50 miles on the same day. It was an awesome experience. And if you could see my camera right now, you would see that I have a training log right in front of me. And it went back from this training log was in the beginning of March through May when my run happened last year. And it's got mileage on there that I crossed off. And all of this leads to outcomes, right? Being consistent, being faithful brings a certain outcome to it. So like, for example, on the week of 3/6 last year, I ran 5 miles on one day. Then on Tuesday, I did a 4-mile training and 8-mile training on Wednesday, 8 miles on Thursday. And then I did 10 miles on Saturday for a week total of 35 miles in that week. And that grew and grew and grew. And then on the week of my actual run, I did 63 miles, including the 50-miler. And it was just a tremendous experience. I put a lot of time and energy into that. And there was a lot of base training that had to happen in advance of starting this. Like, it was an 11-week plan that I've got in front of me. So, but before I could even start that 11-week plan, I had to have a lot of base miles down. It took just a tremendous amount of energy. So insert 2023, and I started looking at just a lot of time and energy that I've spent in launching what we're doing right here at IT Path, and a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of energy to get this off the ground. It's consistent. It's a labor of love, one might say, as you work on a business and you get it going and you put a lot of energy into it. And then something happened. I met somebody. I did an interview with him a few weeks ago, Sean Elliott. And Sean and I started sharing with each other some of the energy and efforts that we've put into our online businesses and what we've been working on. And as Sean and I started talking about this and exploring what was going on in our businesses, we had an epiphany. Like, it was like we were supposed to be working on something together. And I think that maybe God put something behind the scenes and said, hey, Dana, you and Sean, you and Dana, you're going to be doing something together, and it's going to be really super cool. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So Sean Elliott and I, Sean, like I said, came in and he interviewed on the podcast with me a few weeks ago. He talked about his Amazon business and a lot of things that he was working on, and how all of that kind of fell apart with a lot of investments toward the end of it. And then he shifted and now he's doing IT stuff and all of that. And like I said, when we put a lot of energy and effort into something, we should have outcomes. And sometimes we find that just putting a little bit of effort into something, all of a sudden we start seeing some outcomes. And that's happened with Sean and I. So a few weeks ago, probably about 2 months ago now, Sean and I started to kind of flesh out some ideas around helping people in the areas of business, right? So you've got an online, maybe you've got an idea, or maybe you already have an online business, or maybe you're frustrated because you tried to start an online business and it all kind of fell apart. And remember that the energy you put into something should yield on the other end. The investment, now you can look at that as being time, you can look at that as being money, you can look at that as just being physical energy. Any of those things, time, money, effort, any of those things that you're putting into like an online business, or you're training an IT path, you're reading maybe tech books, or you're putting your hands in projects, all of that is going to yield something on the other end. And that's what I'm so excited about to tell you, is like, when something really resonates and you start getting synergy with other people, that stuff accelerates. When you start to find other people that share that like interest, it's like a tuning fork in your heart that is resonating with a tuning fork in somebody else. And all of a sudden that frequency gets louder and you're like, oh, yes, we can do this. We can accomplish so much more together as a team. So Sean and I started fleshing out some ideas around zero to income. We've been reading some books. I read the book Effortless by Greg McKeown. I talked about that here on this podcast. And also I've read My Story Brand by Donald Miller. Fantastic book. I started to get into Marketing Made Simple, which is another one of Donald Miller's books. Sean is already like pounding his way through it. But we started to build this idea that building business does not have to be difficult. We've found that there's a lot of frustration that people have when they start to build an online business. Now, how does this apply to you as you think about your IT journey? Well, that's going to be specific to you. You're going to have to think about that. And maybe it does apply to you, and maybe it doesn't apply to you. I'm not going to make any assumptions about that. But I know for me, when I started my technology career, I was really in it, as a sole proprietor. I had a contract with a school, and that's where I got my start, contracting with a school. So I had this contract, and I worked that contract for so many years before I even got hired. Man, hindsight's 2020. I should have just kept doing it as a sole proprietor. Now, I did get insurance and some other things, but if I'd have known what I know now back then, I would have been like, no, I'm going to keep doing this as a sole proprietor. I could have raised my fees. I could have done all sorts of things because what I was providing was incredibly valuable. And I know that because when I left the school and worked at a wind farm for about 8 months, I came back to the school and stepped into the superintendent's office. And basically he told me, he said, what do you want? He needed me to come back to the school. What do you want? Well, I could have just basically said, well, I'm going to get this much bigger contract, and I'm going to get my own health insurance and all of that. But instead, I decided to work for them. And I said, I want it to be full-time work. I want to have a regular, be a regular employee with the school so I can get insurance and all that stuff. And I did get some great insurance and everything, but hindsight's 2020. So where you're at now, maybe you're looking at just getting into IT. Maybe you've got some experience in IT already. Maybe that experience that you already have in IT is a gateway for you to be able to start your own business in tech. Now, wouldn't that be cool? That's something I'm thinking about myself. And I know there's companies out there that allow you to franchise and do all sorts of things. But man, I'm thinking, I know this stuff like the back of my hand. And proof of that is I'm taking a little rabbit trail here, so forgive me. I'm going to give you a little story. I got a call a few weeks ago from my brother-in-law, and he said, I'm working on this building project. He does construction, and he remodeled this office, and he tore down some inside walls, and in the process, they wanted to put wire up some network jacks in some other places, and time went on and on and on, and these wires are just kind of hanging down their closet. And my brother-in-law said, hey, my brother-in-law can come and do the, hook all this stuff up for you if you're interested. And he's in Maine. I'm in North Carolina, but I had been going back and forth to Maine quite a bit. as my wife and I are taking care of a very dear friend of ours in Maine. And so Brad, my brother-in-law, said, hey, why don't you come look at this job and see if this is something you can do. So I walked into that job and I saw there's about 10 or 12 wires hanging down. And this is high, guys. I'm throwing out a high number. I said, yeah, I'll wire this up for $100 a wire, like to terminate both ends and get the jacks and test everything out. I'll wire it up for $100 a wire, 12 wires. So that's $1,200. And I had to buy some tools, and I shipped some tools up to Maine, and I went up and I did that job. I walked in basically not knowing the network, not knowing how things were structured. It was just, and it was a mess. There was wires hanging down, and it was a mess. So I ended up actually giving them a little bit more value than that. I ended up redoing a patch panel for them, and the patch panel that they had up there was a mess, and stuff wasn't zip tied into it. It was just a train wreck. And so I rewired that patch panel. I hooked up the new wires, and for basically $1,200 for about eight hours worth of work. That's pretty good money. That's all right. And it shows that it proves that I can walk into a lot of situations and just get a read on what's going on. I can walk into an IT department and very quickly I can get a pretty good read on the IT staff, whether or not they are just covering things up or whether or not they're really doing well at their jobs. It's I don't know if it's a gift from God or if it's just a developed skill. I'm not quite positive of how to, think about it that way from a spiritual standpoint, but I do have this skill. And I've now started to translate this skill into other things. I'm using this skill to better business processes, to make things run smooth, make things run reliable. And I'm building all of that stuff out and doing well at what I do. We've got automated printing at my workplace. We're working on replacing a very archaic system just because we've started to put some pieces in place that make things work better. Processes and all that stuff come very naturally to me. Now, Sean, who I'm working with on this other project, Sean is very good at digging into the details. He's the guy that when an update comes out for a software package, he messes around with it until he figures out all of the new features. And he'll do videos on all of these features, and he'll build this stuff out, and he'll have it available online. And he's just so good at that. And it makes sense that Sean and I work together on this project because of where our skill sets lie. So as Sean and I have been talking and building our own businesses, I've been building IT Path. Sean has been building a project called the Membership Answer Man. I think it's themembershipanswerman.com. You can go there if you want to check that out. Sean's been working on that, and I've been working on this IT Path business. And then we got connected, and we started talking about, well, what if we could figure out ways to make business super easy for people? What if we could be the people that build the tools and the automations and all of that help take all of the complexity out of somebody who's out there who's got an idea and wants to test it in the marketplace? Because Sean and I were both part of a program that was proving to bring a lot of complexity to the table. And we're like, this just doesn't work. This isn't right. The complexity is too great. You got people that want to do a business, and then you got a team of people around them that are spitballing ideas to them, say, hey, try this, hey, try that, hey, try this. And then before long, people are spent, they're exhausted, they're frustrated, and they've given up on their idea. Well, the problem was that they weren't actually building out their idea with simplicity at the beginning. Hey, this is Dana Morrison, host of the IT Path podcast, and I hope you are enjoying this week's episode. Are you interested in getting into IT? Let me ask you one simple question. What is holding you back? IT Path is dedicated to developing a community, content, and courses that will help you get unlocked and stay unlocked on your IT journey. I have more than 25 years experience in IT, and I want to share with you what I've learned and give you the tools to succeed on your very own IT path. Even if you are just starting out on your IT journey, we are here for you. To find out more, simply go to itpath.net and sign up for the mailing list, and we will start by sharing some tips, tricks, and tools to help you get going and keep you going. Go to itpath.net and claim your journey. Start your IT path today. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the episode. And the same applies to you as you think about your tech career. Simplicity. Go after one thing. Go after one skill. Don't try and lump it all in. You're just going to be out like a rabbit running all over the place. So if you can go after networking, okay, I'm going to learn how to wire network jacks, and I'm going to charge $150 an hour because I know this, $125 an hour because I know this skill. I was able to do that very easily. Just walk in sight unseen to this place. Guy didn't know me. And I just basically did the job. I tested everything out and it was all awesome. And when he came back, I was like, oh, boys, I'm kind of nervous about a couple of these jacks just because of where they were plugged into the switch. And I didn't know how the switch was configured, but I got it all right. And he came in and was super pleased that his network closet was all cleaned up, prim and proper. And that comes with practice, right? But you can very easily learn how to wire jacks up and things. And then all of a sudden, you're now becoming a person of value to somebody who's an electrician that doesn't want to take the time to wire up all those jacks. You can actually step in and wire those jacks. And if you know how to run a tester, you can go test them. You're talking like $200 worth of tools, people. It's pretty cheap. And for those of you out there, some of you might have already actually just bought the tools because you're like, this is a great skill to have. It absolutely is an awesome skill to have because you can make patch cables, you can do all sorts of things. And, you got buddies that want patch cable to run, they're online gaming and they don't want to run it over Wi-Fi. They want to run it off the LAN, right? So, so you can build those skills and you can start to do that stuff and have value in the marketplace. But how can you put your value in the market? How can you actually get your value out there so people can see it? And that is where people start thinking about, well, maybe I'll get my business online. I'll start it, get it out there, I'll get it up and running, and then I'll kind of work from that. And then the complexity comes because you don't know how to run an online business. So you're thinking, okay, well, I need a Facebook account. I need drawing a blank, Twitter. I need Instagram. I got to have a finance system. I got to have a way to get paid, and I got to have a way to pay people sometimes. So you've got to have all of those systems hooked up. You got to have your website, got to have domain, got to have your email set up, all of those things, and then it starts to all fall apart because you haven't even built the basics for what your messaging is going to be on your website, what does your branding look like, and all of that stuff. So you're trying to build a website on the fly and trying to build a logo on the fly because you got to have it on the web. Oh, I better have business cards set up. And do I need a tagline? What should that tagline be? And then all of a sudden you just become overwhelmed with all these details because at the beginning, nobody ever showed you how to build some of that stuff from the ground up, and to do it in a simple way. Now, some of you, if you've noticed on IT Path, I did a major tweak about 6 or 8 weeks ago. I completely revamped the look of the site to make it much more easier to follow. And I did that following some principles from Donald Miller's stuff about my story brand. I ran through my story brand with IT Path. And I got my messaging nailed down and I got my website nailed down because I knew what my messaging was. So it all goes back to the nuts and bolts at the very beginning when you start your business. And it does not have to be complicated. So I want to tell you this, it doesn't have to be complicated to start an online business. All you need is you've got to have some idea to get you rolling. Okay. You've got to have something to get you started. And then you're going to work from that, and you're going to figure out of that, is there a need? Does this resonate with people? Can I solve a problem in the marketplace? Is that problem going to bring value, and can I get money and trade for it? And once you know that, and once you feel solid about that, you can build out your whole story brand script using Donald Miller stuff, which has got a free website online, mystorybrand.com. you can actually build out your story brand script for free, and you could build that out, and then you know what your messaging is, and then from there, once you have that, then you can start looking at the other pieces. Okay, now my product, let me focus on my product. All right, now let me focus on a lead magnet. Now let me focus on simple systems to make all of this work together. And then you get into the last step, was actually announcing it in the marketplace. So you've got an idea, then you're putting that idea in a box with a price tag on it, right? You're selling, you've built something that you're selling. You've got a lead magnet that basically says, I can give maybe this PDF away or this audio file away for free or whatever it is, some sort of a lead magnet that's attractive to people, that helps them solve some part of their problem, maybe not the whole thing, obviously. So those are the first three. And then systems. And this is where it falls apart, because people don't know how to build reliable systems very smoothly, easily, that talk to each other and is robust. So that's a huge hinge point. And then you've got, after all that's done, now, all right, get the megaphone. Let's let people know. That's the advertising, right? Whether that's Facebook or Google or whatever. And all of that stuff added up, when you don't have good guides to help you through those pieces, is massive confusion. And that is what Sean and I were experiencing, some massive confusion. So with that, Sean and I said, let's start our own way to help people launch their businesses. It's called Zero to Income, ZERO, the number 2, income.com, ZERO, the number 2, income.com. And if you go there, you can get on the mailing list. There's not much there on the homepage right yet. We're still fleshing out some things of how we want to do the website. But you can get on the mailing list and you can get more information. Now, let me tell you this. You want to do this. You want to get on the podcast. You want to get the link to the pod. You want to subscribe to the podcast. So whether you're on Spotify or Apple, you can go to search on that platform, Zero, the number 2, income, and that will bring up the podcast, Zero to Income. Put that in the search box. That's going to bring up the podcast. Subscribe to that podcast. If you like what's going on here to help you get going on your IT path, I'm pretty sure you're going to love what's going on over at Zero to Income, as Sean and I start to release more episodes around this idea of helping you get your businesses launched in a streamlined fashion, without all of the overhead and complexity. That is what makes people shut down. When things start to get complicated. Now, remember what I was saying at the beginning. You should have proper outcome for the amount of effort you put into something. If you're investing a lot of time and energy into something and you're not getting anything out of it, it's time to stop. It's time to revamp the way that you're working, so that you can actually get proper outcomes. And what Sean and I have found is that at the very beginning, some of this is so stinking easy. And that's really our mantra. We really want to make business stinking easy for people, because what we have found is, through some of these tools we've discovered and some of the stuff that we're building ourselves internally to help you do some research and different things, that starting your business is not complicated. If you have an idea and you want to try it in the marketplace, it is so easy to get started. It's phenomenally easy. And you can do some very basic things at the beginning and test your idea before you even get it out to market. You can test it because of what other people are saying in like YouTube channels and different things like that. And we've got tools that we're working on. Some of these tools are already online that allow you to do research in a very streamlined way without spending hours and hours and hours trying to figure stuff out. So that's what's going on. And I'm super excited about it. Today, this podcast, I realize, is much shorter because I'm in the middle of working with Sean on some things that are really going to help a lot of people. Please get on that subscription for Zero to Income. Search it up on Spotify, search it up on Apple, and go to zerotoincome.com, ZERO, the number 2, income.com, and get on the mail list. You're going to want to do that soon, because if you're already on the mail list, then you're going to get some of the sneak peek stuff at the beginning of all of what we're working on. Thank you for being here at IT Path, and I hope to see you more over at Zero to Income as we work to help people launch their businesses in a stinking easy manner. We want to just take all of the complexity out of getting your business rolling and getting it online. And let me give you an example. I realized through a forum that Sean and I are part of how easy it was to do a book online. Now, I like to journal. So when somebody told me that they did they made coloring books using, I think it's called Midjourney, one of the AI tools, they made some coloring books. And I was like, well, that's really cool. How easy was it to get your book online? She said, oh my goodness, it was so easy to get it on KDP. That's Kindle Direct Publishing for Amazon. And I'm like, I'm going to check that out. So I did. And then I checked out Lulu Press. And Lulu Press, I thought, was even easier than Amazon to get it so that you could at least purchase copies and make them available for sale. That's the kind of thing, right? That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Not some long, laborious process that you have to go through to finally get your result. No. Let's get your result as fast as possible so that you don't end up spending a lot of time and energy on the front end for something that's actually not going to work. Not everything's going to work. And just because something does work doesn't mean you should do it. Just because there's membership platforms out there doesn't mean you should make one. Just because people are out there making money on it, making full-time incomes on it, doesn't mean that that's for you. That doesn't mean that that's going to be what resonates inside of you. That's what we want to go after. Let's go after the passion, right? You got a passion in tech, you got a passion to research stuff, whatever. You could very easily get a research site up. You could very build a site that's just dedicated to people that want to build their first computer, something like that. You can get something online. If that is your thing, if that is what you love, go for it, do it, get it out there, and find out if it's going to resonate in the marketplace. And at Zero to Income, we want to make it as easy as possible and as cheap as possible for you to be able to test your idea without a huge overhead. Now, that should resonate with you. You should be hearing that. That's a thread that is woven into what I talk about here on IT Path, and that is there's a lot of people out there spending a lot of money on big education. They're spending a lot of money on associate's degree programs and bachelor's degrees and master's degrees and all of that stuff, only to get onto the other side and get into the marketplace and find out, actually, no, that isn't my thing. Or, man, I could have done this a lot easier and quicker if I just got some experience. So let's bypass the complexity and make the shortest path possible for you to have success. So I hope that you will check out Zero to Income, as Sean and I are going to be working on that and recording podcasts and things, releasing that information out there. But I wanted to get this out there to you and let you know what's going on with that. So zerotoincome.com, go check it out, get signed up on the mailing list. I'm not going to pound you with crazy stuff. All right. You know that already from IT Path. What I deliver to you, I want it to be of value. All right, Dana Morrison signing off. I hope that you all make it an awesome weekend. You have been listening to the IT Path podcast. Did you like this episode? Why not subscribe and share with others? IT Path is dedicated to helping you claim your IT journey. You can find out more at itpath.net.